Guys, welcome to our web programming project. So this project is made by the five of us, me, Vimet, Kayan, and Varun. So what's our project about? It's about using HTML and CSS to create a logic, like a card game in which um, if you get the right card, you get to win, and if you get the wrong card, you lose. So the game should respect the limitations of these technologies because we're only using HTML and CSS. So trying to create logics with these two languages, it's gonna be a little bit complicated. So we're gonna try our best to make sure it works as best as possible. So so the HTML structure, we are making an HTML layer that accurately depicts the game board, the cards, and the user interface elements. So for the CSS style, we are using a card graphics. We have some buttons, some and the background and the layout may all be designed and styled using CSS. And it's a responsive design, which means it works on different screens, smaller screens, bigger screens. So um, also for the overview of solution, the basic idea behind the app is that when you click on a card and it's the right card, you get to win. And you click on the wrong card, you lose the game. Thank you.
So now we'll dive into the key design features.
Okay, so the main functionality is provided by the use of the checked pseudo class to create if statements. When a radio checkbox or option in an element is checked, it will be toggled on. If all of the correct checks match the on state, it will return a win, and if not, you lose.
I'll go and move into this one. So for a lot of the other animations, we just kind of use keyframe animations and stuff like that, and then transitions. We use some of the built-in CSS animations, and then basic pseudo classes, like stuff like hover, stuff like that. So for the user interface, this is the main game user interface. So the way that it works is we just have a couple of basic animations going on. So in the background, we have a little parallax effect going on to just keep the user interface interesting. We have the cloud moving across the top of the screen, is going back and forth. We have a cogwheel in the bottom left corner that's spinning while the user's on the screen. And then on the actual interaction with the user, we have a couple of different animations. So when you hover over any of these circles, you get a little shake effect. And if you click on one of them, the thing starts spinning. And then also, the other thing that we have is in the bottom right, there's a button. If you hover over it, there's like a little bit of an animation to let you know that you're hovering over it. And then the other logical things that we have going on to make the functionality of the game work, we basically, like we were talking about earlier, when you click on a card and you click play, what it does is it sees are all those correct checkboxes checked. All of these are just kind of hidden radio checkboxes. And if the correct ones are checked and you click submit, you get win, and it unhides the correct card, and it unhides that like win element, and it shows you that. And if you choose the incorrect one, it'll unhide the lose element, and it'll show that instead.
Uh, for the home page, the buttons when hovered over indicates to users that is about to be selected by adding a white outline that slowly grows. So this one we created as a simple CSS and HTML, and yeah, and we use button to handle and navigation between pages. So yeah.
So here's a basic just UML class diagram. So we just included all of the elements that we're using. So on the home page, we have the background parallax style sheet. So we created a separate style sheet just for the background because we're going to be reusing it a lot. So we have that connected to the home page and to the game page because those are the two pages where we're going to be using it. And we also have a project info page. And on this page, we have the project CSS style sheet. So this is just where we have the little blurb about the team members, what everyone did, stuff like that. And the game page has its own style sheet. And then the other thing we have is just the card assets. So these are just the images that we used on the screen. So for the pseudocode on the game logic.
All right, so if the user clicks on the correct radio button and hits submit, then it will show win and show the correct card. If they clicked on the wrong the wrong card, it will tell them that they lose. The card is always the same because we can't create logic for randomization. So it's essentially a matching game. And if you get it right the first time, then you win, and if not, then you lose.
Okay, and then we have a couple of other just basic things. So if a user hovers over a button, show some animations to show that. If the user clicks on a card, turn it green, and then spin the card so that they know that that's the card that's currently being shown. And then while the game screen is active, just move the cloud across the top of the screen and spin the gear icon in the bottom left. So for the pseudocode animations, for the spinning and the cloud movement, basically just while the user is on the game page, continuously just spin the wheel. And then for the cloud movement, we just move the cloud to the edge of the screen, and then reverse movement once the cloud hits the edge of the screen. We did this using an alternate command. And so now we'll go into the parallax animation.
Okay, so the parallax is created with two grid displays layered on top of each other. One is offsetted upwards by 5 tiles, and the other one is offsetted downwards by 5 tiles. When the animation plays, the top and the bottom will converge on top of each other, creating a parallax effect. Each rectangle is made is opacity of 15%. So when they overlap together, it will create a temporary rectangle that is now 30%, also appearing darker. So it appears there's multiple shades happening in the background, but in reality, there's only one opacity being used. The first and fifth column move faster than the 3 inner columns, and the second and fourth column move faster than the first column, which actually creates the parallax effect. And the pseudocode for the parallax animation. So the far left image, it just shows how the columns are set up. They're just columns of 10 rectangles each. The middle animation shows how the grids are set up. There's 2, one starting from the top and one starting from the bottom. And the third is showing how the animation is done. So they're moving from an origin to a destination. All of them move within 10 seconds, but they move different distances. The outer columns move the furthest in the shortest amount of time, which is why they're moving the quickest.
So the game logic is pretty basic. Here you can basically see if the correct checkboxes are checked, then we'll show a win condition. Otherwise, we'll show a lose condition. We also had a condition up here originally for a tie feature, but we decided to change that and let that go. So this is just the super basic kind of idea behind it is just we check to make sure that the correct things have been checked, and then if they are, we go ahead and display the win condition stuff, and if not, then we show the lose condition stuff. And then when the user hits reset, and we just reset everything back to how it was at the beginning of the game. So for the hover button, it's pretty basic. We just have the standard stuff for the hover or for the start button. And if you hover over it, then we just change the background color a little bit, and we add a little bit of a shadow to make the user know that they're hovering over it. For the clouds too, pretty simple. We just have the position of the clouds at the top of the screen, and we made it absolute because that's always where they're going to be. And then we just have this animation move cloud. And again, we have it go on forever, and we alternate it. And then here you can see at the 0th percentile, it starts on the left, and at the 100, it just moves all the way to the other side of the screen. For the cogwheel, that's in the bottom left corner. Again, we did a fixed position at the bottom left because that's where we always want it. And we just have, again, an infinite animation of it rotating that goes over the course of some time. And here, super simple, we just started at 0 degrees and then rotate it 1 full circle. The card shake too, this was a bit of a more complicated animation, but we just basically had to move it back and forth at different keyframes. And then whenever someone hovers over the label, this is the animation that'll play. And we use the ease in and out to make this animation progress and look a little more smooth. The card spin, so this is pretty simple, just whenever any of the labels are checked, so for each card we just gave it R, P, and S as a label. So if any of them are checked, as in they're clicked on, they're slightly made bigger, and then it spins just infinitely, and then it turns green as well, so that the user knows that they've selected that card. So for testing the app, it's pretty simple. The first thing that we did is just make sure the links between all the pages worked and that the page navigation was functional. After that, we check that all assets were correctly showing up on the screen. And then after that, we check the background animations and made sure that those were correctly working. And then after that, we ran through the game functionality, and we just checked every single option. We made sure that lose or win was being displayed correctly depending on the card being clicked. And then that was pretty much it for testing. And for the Kanban methodology, basically to implement this, we just had small 15-minute stand-ups every day to kind of go over 3 things: what we did yesterday, what we're doing today, and any blockers that we might have, and how we can resolve those blockers. We kind of use the JIRA ideology of epics, and then smaller things underneath the epics of issues. We just took big tasks that we had and then broke them up into small bite-sized chunks, and then created tasks on the board and then assigned users to them. The biggest thing we did to make sure we're sticking to the Kanban ideology of limited tasks and focusing on one thing at a time was limiting people to only 2 tasks at a time. And this was a huge this really helped us organize our project a lot, because it made it easy to see who was doing what blockers there were, and it was easy to hold people accountable and make sure that we were making consistent progress on a day-to-day basis. So in conclusion, after this conclusion, I'll do a short demo of the site and just go over all the information. We created a functional user interface for a simplistic card game, and obviously the best way to expand on this will just be to use JavaScript and get user input to make the game more complicated, because right now it's not that complex because CSS really limits what we can do. So now we'll go ahead and dive into a quick demo. So here we can see we have our homepage here, and in the background we have the parallax effect that we were talking about. So there's 2 places you can go from here. You can go to start the actual game, or go to the project information. So we'll go here first. So here we have our leader's name, the project title, the project description, and then what everyone did. And then here we have our GitHub link. So this is just where everything is stored. Then we have a link back to the homepage. Now we can go ahead and click on the actual start game. So here again, we have the same parallax animation in the background. We have the cloud moving across the top of the screen, and when it hits one of the edges, it moves back, and the cogwheel spinning in the bottom left corner. And so now what you can see is if you hover over each of these, they shake a little bit to let you know you're hovering over them. If you click on one, it starts spinning and it turns green. Same thing here. And if we click fight, it's going to go ahead and display the correct card and the correct win condition based on what card you selected. So if you click again, and if we choose this one, which is still the incorrect one, it'll say lose again. And then if we choose the correct one, it'll say win. So that's the basic functionality of the game. Now we have the link here that also goes back to the homepage. And then that basically sums up our project.